In the golden age of Hollywood, if you were casting the perfect hero, the guy everyone could trust, you'd cast James Garner. With that charming smile and easygoing vibe, he was the friend everyone wished they had. His characters, from the clever card-sharp Brett Maverick to the relentless private eye Jim Rockford, felt like extensions of the man himself. Authentic, witty, and just fundamentally decent. By all accounts, he was one of the good guys in a tough town. But behind the scenes, another Hollywood giant, an icon of cool who defined a whole generation, apparently couldn't stand him. This wasn't some petty squabble over a parking spot. It was a bitter rivalry that kicked off on the set of one of the greatest war films ever made and simmered for decades. It was a clash of egos, a conflict of philosophies, and it got ugly. This is the story of a legendary feud that reveals how two of Hollywood's biggest stars became lifelong enemies. To get why these two clashed, you have to understand who they were. They were like two sides of the same coin, both projecting that effortless cool, but they were forged in completely different fires. One was a man of principle who took on studios for what was right. The other was a man of image who took on co-stars for the spotlight. James Garner, born James Scott Bumgarner in Oklahoma, had a tough childhood. His mother died when he was young, and he and his brothers endured a physically abusive stepmother. In a moment that defined the man he'd become, a 14-year-old Garner finally stood up to her, putting a stop to the abuse himself. That inner toughness and sense of justice never left him. He served in the Korean War and was wounded in combat, earning 2 Purple Hearts for his service. This experience gave him a no-nonsense approach to life that was a world away from the Hollywood glitz to come. He sort of stumbled into acting. A friend got him a non-speaking part in the Broadway play, The Caine Mutiny Court-Martial, where he shared a stage with the great Henry Fonda. Garner's only job was to listen. Night after night, he watched a master at work and learned the most important rule of acting. It's all about reacting. That became his signature style, natural, understated, and completely believable. His big break was the TV series Maverick, playing a charming gambler who'd rather outsmart you than outdraw you. The show was a smash hit, but it was also where Garner first showed his steel spine. In 1960, Warner Brothers tried to suspend him without pay during a writer's strike, which was a breach of his contract. Everyone told him not to, but Garner sued the studio. It was a risky move that could have ended his career, but he fought and won. An influential victory that inspired other actors to stand up for their rights. He did it again decades later, suing Universal Studios over profits from his hit show, The Rockford Files. The studio tried to claim the show was losing money, a classic case of what's now known as Hollywood accounting. While Garner's lawsuit certainly drew major attention to these slick practices, the term creative accounting had been around before his case. He fought them for 9 years and walked away with a multi-million-dollar settlement. That was James Garner, a professional who did his job without a fuss but refused to be pushed around. And then there was Steve McQueen. If Garner was quiet integrity, McQueen was pure rebellion. Born in Indiana, he also had a rough childhood. His father left, and his alcoholic mother sent him to live with relatives and eventually a boys' home. He found some direction in the Marines, but his rebellious streak remained. McQueen burst into Hollywood with a raw, desperate ambition that Garner just didn't have. The camera loved his untamed energy, and he quickly became the king of cool. But that persona was meticulously crafted. He was a movie star first, an actor second, and he was obsessed with his image. Unlike Garner, who saw acting as a job, McQueen saw it as a cage match. He was known for being difficult, famously counting his lines to make sure he had more than his co-stars. On the set of The Magnificent Seven, he drove Yul Brynner crazy by constantly fiddling with his hat or props to steal focus in their scenes together. This was Steve McQueen, a fiercely competitive star driven by deep-seated insecurities. Or, as Garner would later call him, a poser. In 1963, these two men, the principled professional and the insecure star, were cast together in the World War II epic The Great Escape. It was a story about camaraderie, but behind the scenes it was the start of a war. Picture it. Germany, 1962. Director John Sturges is putting together a dream team for The Great Escape. The cast is a who's who of masculine cool. Richard Attenborough, Charles Bronson, James Coburn, and of course James Garner and Steve McQueen. For the audience, it was an amazing ensemble. For the actors on set, it was a powder keg of egos. Right away, the difference between Garner and McQueen was obvious. Garner, the ultimate pro, showed up, knew his lines, and got along with everyone. McQueen, on the other hand, kept his distance, staying in a private chalet and rolling up to set in a flashy car. The real trouble started when McQueen read the script. He was furious that his character, the cooler king, wasn't the only hero. He hated sharing the spotlight. He complained the part wasn't heroic enough and threatened to walk off the picture. The director, John Sturges, was at his wit's end. He even reportedly told Garner he was thinking about rewriting the whole movie to make Garner's character the star instead. Garner, always pragmatic, turned down the offer, knowing it would cause chaos. Instead, he sat down with McQueen to figure out what the issue was. To keep his temperamental star happy, Sturges and the writers went back to work. They beefed up McQueen's part and, most famously, they gave him that motorcycle. The thrilling motorcycle chase, including the iconic jump over a barbed wire fence, was pure Hollywood fiction, added to the film for audience excitement and to give McQueen a star moment. But here's a fun fact. While McQueen was a skilled writer and did much of the writing himself, the legendary jump was actually performed by his friend and stuntman, Bud Ekins, mainly for insurance reasons. Garner watched all this unfold with growing irritation. He saw McQueen's behavior not as artistic passion, but as the tantrums of a self-centered movie star. The tension wasn't just professional. It got personal. McQueen was intensely jealous of his first wife, Neil Adams. According to Garner's memoir, McQueen became paranoid during filming, convinced Garner was having an affair with her. Garner was stunned by the baseless accusation. He considered McQueen a friend, almost like a delinquent younger brother, and dismissed the paranoia as a product of McQueen's deep-seated anxiety. But the accusation poisoned the well. The experience of making The Great Escape had planted the seeds of a resentment that would last a lifetime. After The Great Escape wrapped, James Garner decided he would never work with Steve McQueen again. It was a promise he kept. The rivalry didn't fade over time. It hardened into a feud that Garner, in particular, would speak about with brutal honesty. Years later, in his 2011 memoir, The Garner Files, he finally let loose. His assessment of McQueen was scathing. Like Marlon Brando, he could be a pain in the ass on set, Garner wrote before delivering the knockout punch. Unlike Brando, he wasn't an actor. He was a movie star, a poser who cultivated the image of a macho man. That distinction was everything to Garner. You could always see him acting, Garner said, calling it the kiss of death. He saw McQueen as a brand, not a craftsman, a carefully built image of cool that lacked real substance. The professional jealousy seemed to run mostly one way. McQueen was intensely competitive, but the rivalry with Garner took on a special venom with the 1966 racing film, Grand Prix. McQueen, a passionate race car driver, desperately wanted the lead role. He felt it was his. But his reputation for being difficult meant the studio passed him over and cast James Garner instead. For McQueen, this was the ultimate betrayal. Garner knew it was a delicate situation and even called McQueen to tell Garner for a year and a half after that. Legend has it that the feud got so petty, McQueen once urinated from his balcony down onto Garner's patio. Though that story remains more of a Hollywood tale than a verified fact. Garner seemed to view McQueen with a mix of pity and contempt, seeing his rival's behavior as a product of crippling insecurity. Still, the disrespect was something he could never forgive. Their feud became one of Hollywood's quietest but most intense conflicts, a war waged through icy silence and, eventually, searing memoirs. This clash of titans tells you so much about the pressures of fame. If you're finding this glimpse into old Hollywood fascinating, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next story. The feud with Steve McQueen was Garner's most famous, but it wasn't a one-off. It was part of a pattern. Garner didn't just dislike McQueen. He disliked a certain type of person. His feuds were almost never about jealousy. They were about a deep intolerance for arrogance and unprofessionalism. Take his clash with Charles Bronson, his co-star in The Great Escape. In his memoir, Garner described Bronson as bitter and belligerent. He recounted a story from a poker game on set where Bronson allegedly tried to bully a low-paid extra. Garner, whose sense of fairness was non-negotiable, confronted Bronson and made sure the man got paid what he was owed. The two nearly came to blows. "Hell, I never thought I was outspoken," Garner later said. "I just told the truth." The list goes on. He found Kirk Douglas overly competitive. He was openly critical of Ryan O'Neal's arrogance, especially how he treated crew members. For Garner, how you treated people who couldn't advance your career was the true measure of your character. He even had run-ins with Lee Marvin, citing his behavior as a reason for their difficult relationship. What connects all these conflicts is James Garner's personal code. He couldn't stand bullies, phonies, or actors who put their ego above the work and the people around them. Seen through this lens, his decades-long feud with McQueen makes perfect sense. McQueen wasn't just a rival. He was the poster boy for everything Garner detested. The line counting, the demands for more screen time, the focus on image, it all violated Garner's basic principles of how a professional and a man ought to act. His dislike for McQueen wasn't an exception. It was the rule. The feud between James Garner and Steve McQueen never really ended because there was nothing to resolve. It was a fundamental clash of character. Their paths never crossed again professionally. McQueen's life was cut tragically short in 1980 when he died of cancer at 50, cementing his status as the king of cool, frozen in time. Garner lived for another 34 years, building a long and respected career. But even after McQueen's death, his opinion never softened. The words in his memoir, published more than 30 years after McQueen passed, were just as sharp. For Garner, it wasn't a grudge. It was a matter of principle. The legacy of their rivalry is a fascinating study in two different blueprints for stardom. Steve McQueen's legacy is that of the ultimate movie star. His power was his persona. You went to a McQueen movie to see him be Steve McQueen. But his reputation for being difficult and insecure became just as legendary as his on-screen cool. James Garner's legacy is that of the ultimate professional. He was a beloved actor, admired for his craft, his wit, and his integrity. His biggest fights weren't with co-stars over close-ups, but with studios over fairness. He proved that an actor could demand what was right and still have a long, successful career. In the end, their story represents two different Hollywoods. One is the Hollywood of image and cutthroat ambition, McQueen's world. The other is the Hollywood of craftsmanship, professionalism, and quiet dignity, Garner's world. Perhaps Garner himself summed it up best. Looking back, he once said, "McQueen and I got along pretty good. He looked at me kind of like an older brother. He didn't want to have much to do with me, till he got in trouble. Then he'd call. And he knew he could trust me to tell him just what I thought." It perfectly captures their dynamic. One man, forever the troubled kid, and the other, the steady figure always willing to offer the unvarnished, and often unwelcome, truth. The feud between James Garner and Steve McQueen is a powerful reminder that on-screen personas are often just the tip of the iceberg. Behind the glamour lies a world of insecurity, jealousy, and deeply held principles. Garner's intense dislike of McQueen wasn't just a celebrity spat. It was a clash of values that defined their entire careers. What do you think? Was Garner's assessment of McQueen fair? Or was he too harsh on a troubled star? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into the legendary rivalries of Hollywood's golden age. Thanks for watching.